I'm going to go over how you put in the Drosophila results into the Google spreadsheet that I made for all of you to use. So you can see here I have two tabs open in Google Chrome. The first one says F1 Drosophila results. The second one says F2 Drosophila results. So you should have access to both of these spreadsheets. If you do not, please let me know as soon as possible. So you can see that each of these are identical to each other, except for one is for your F1 data, so the first set of flies that you counted, and one is for the F2 data, the second set of flies that you counted. So you can see here that these sheets are broken up by reciprocal cross, and also by the type of cross. So on the bottom of each of these, you can see two tabs. One says dihybrid cross, so this is for your wild type crossed with strain 2 cross. The other one says trihybrid cross. This is your wild type crossed with strain 1. Same thing for your F2 results. Dihybrid cross, wild type crossed with strain 2. Trihybrid cross, wild type crossed with strain 1. So if you look at each of these sheets, they're broken up by reciprocal cross. So the top one here is wild type female crossed with strain 2 male. The bottom is wild type male crossed with strain 2 female with the trihybrid cross. With the trihybrid cross, there's only one of these. For trihybrid cross, you have strain 1 female crossed with wild type male and strain 1 male crossed with wild type female. So that's for the F1. F2, the same thing for the dihybrid cross, wild type female crossed with strain 2 male and wild type male crossed with strain 2 female. And same thing for the trihybrid cross, strain 1 female crossed with wild type male, strain 1 male crossed with wild type female. Most of you for the F2, most of you for the trihybrid cross should have your data in strain 1 female crossed with wild type male. So I'm going to walk through how we put this data into these spreadsheets using some sample data that I have right here. So I've compiled F1 results right here. So you can see that I've broken it down by my two different crosses, the dihybrid cross, wild type cross with strain 2, and the trihybrid cross, wild type cross with strain 1. So first let's look at the dihybrid cross. The reciprocal cross that I'm using here is female wild type crossed with male strain 2. You may have the opposite. We'll talk about how that would work in just a second. You may have done both of these. If that's the case, then you'll put in data in both parts of the spreadsheet. So you can see I've broken down my counts by males and females. So for example, if you look at the males that I counted, I had 25 flies that were wild type for both body color and wing size. I had 2 flies that were mutant for body color and wild type for wing size. 0 flies that were wild type for body and mutant for wing size. And 3 flies that were mutant for body and mutant for wing size. Now keep in mind, this is not actual data. I'm just putting in numbers here. Your data may look completely different, and that's fine. I'm just showing you how I would format your data to put it into the spreadsheet. Also, females, same thing. 22 wild type body color, wild type wing size, and so on. So you can see, I think you'll find it helpful to format your data in this way from your lab notebook before you put it into the spreadsheet. And each of you have at least 3 to 4 people in your group, so you may want to break up the work where each of you format some of the data and everyone has access to the spreadsheet. So split up the work. Some people put some of the data in, some people put other data. So let's say we wanted to enter this data into the spreadsheet, the F1 results of our dihybrid cross. So if we go back to our F1 file here, first thing you do is you're going to pick a group number. So let's say if there's a group number open, say group 2. Put in your group name. You can just be group 2. You can come up with a name. We'll call ourselves frequent flyers, and just make that name black so people will see that you've taken it. And what you're going to do is you're going to use that name for every group 2 in the spreadsheet. Now, whether you did counts for that or not, so I'm basically going to the group 2s for both of the F1s, the dihybrid cross and trihybrid cross, and the F2s. And you can see it looks like someone already put in some data as group 3. So you would not want to use group 3 for any of your data in the F1 or F2 because I would like you to be consistent in how you're entering your data. So we've decided that we're going to be group 2 here. I will clear this out, and group 2 will still be available when you put your data in. And let's go to our dihybrid cross here for the F1. We have data for female wild type, male strain 2. So we are actually going to put our data in here, female wild type, male strain 2. If you have the reciprocal cross, if you did wild type male and strain 2 female, you would simply put the data in the bottom section here instead of the top section here. If you did both reciprocal crosses, so remember I asked you to do I think 40 flies, if you did both reciprocal crosses, about 20 from each, then you would put data in this section here and this section here. So remember I broke these up by males and females. So we had 25 males that were wild type for both. Well, we have phenotype males. Wild type means wild type for body and for wings. So we would put 25 in here. And you'll notice this will keep a running tally of these columns here. And I'll go over what those are in just a second. We had 2 that were mutant for body and wild type for wings. So mutant for body, wild type for wings, 2. So make sure that you're matching up your counts with the right column here. We had 0 that were wild type for body and mutant for wings. So wild type body, mutant wings, 0. And then we had 3 that were mutant for body and mutant for wings. We would put 3 in here. Those are male counts. Then we can do our females. We had 22 that were wild type for body and wild type for wings. So we will go to here and we will put in 22 here. We have 1 that is mutant for body and wild type for wings. So mutant for body, wild type for wings. We have 2 that are wild type for body and mutant for wings. And we had 0 that were mutant for body and mutant for wings. And if you had 0, please do put 0 in there just so I know that you did finish putting all your counts in. So, like I mentioned, if you had the other reciprocal cross, if you did counts for the other reciprocal cross, you would simply put the data in down here. And let's say we put that same data in here just as an example. What you're going to see is there are a number of columns of totals. So in row 14 here is total. This is the total number of wild type for both that were counted for females in this reciprocal cross. This is the total number of wild type body, mutant wing flies that were counted for females in this cross, and so on. Same thing over here, but this is for males. This here in row 15, where it says total both sexes, this is the total number of flies that were wild type for body and wings, independent of the sex, for this reciprocal cross. Same thing with this wild type body, mutant wings, mutant body, wild type wings, mutant body, mutant wings. You'll see the same subtotal down here. This is for this reciprocal cross. And then in row 33, you see grand total, both crosses. This is the total number of wild type for body and for wings. This is the total number of wild type for body, mutant for wings, mutant for body, wild type for wings, mutant for both, irrespective of the sex. So whenever you see both sexes or both crosses, that is independent of the sex. So you are not necessarily going to use all of these subtotals for your analyses, but you'll want to think back to what we talked about in lecture when it came to reciprocal crosses. What are the results that you're going to want to compare to determine if genes are sex-linked or not? Because remember, with this dihybrid cross, one of the first things we want to do is want to determine, are these genes sex-linked? So that would be how you'll put in your data for the dihybrid cross for the F1 results. Other groups will put in their data in here as well. There should be 10 groups worth of data, and the total rows will populate as people put them in. So you'll see these numbers increase as people put in their data. Not everyone did both reciprocal crosses, so some of these will stay blank, and that's fine. So for example, if you're group 2 frequent flyers and you didn't do both reciprocal crosses, then you would only have this data up here. But then perhaps group 4 only did this reciprocal cross, and they would have data down here. So what we'll see is we'll have data for both of these crosses and data for the crosses combined. Let's look at how we would do we would put in the data for the trihybrid cross. So we'll click on that. So remember, we're the frequent flyers here. This is our group. And we have data here for female strain 1 crossed with male wild type. So female strain 1 crossed with male wild type. And again, if you have the reciprocal cross is going to be down here. Strain 1 male with wild type female. Now you'll see this is formatted slightly different, mainly because of the number of different phenotypic classes. So the counts for the females are here. The counts for the males are here. It was too big to put them side by side, so instead the females are on top, the males are on bottom. So let's say this is our data here for our trihybrid cross. And again, I've split this up by males and females. So these are the males. Now you can see that there's 8 phenotypic classes. What I've done is I've split these phenotypic classes into 4 groups of 2, where they're either all wild type or they're all mutant. They're maybe wild type for 2 and mutant for 1. For say wild type eyes, wild type body, mutant wings, and then the opposite, mutant eyes, mutant body, wild type wings. Wild type eyes, mutant body, mutant wings, mutant eyes, wild type body, wild type wings. So you can see each of these groups are reciprocals of each other. There's a reason I did this. You will see why as you go through the analysis, but think back to when we talked about how to analyze 3 linked genes. There's a possibility that these 3 genes are linked. If so, then you're going to need to figure out what are some of the different classes of your phenotypes. And I also set up the data this way because that is how the spreadsheet is set up. They're set up so that the 3 wild type classes are next to the 3 mutant ones. Wild type for eyes and body, and mutant, so short wings, paired with mutant white eyes, mutant yellow body, and wild type wings, and so on. So you can see that these are all paired together. So let's look at this data. So we'll start with the females are on top here. So we'll move down, we'll start with the females. So let's say we had 22 females who are wild type for eyes, body, and wings. So that would be here wild type eyes, wild type body, wild type wings. We'd put 22 in there. If we then look at the reciprocal, mutant for all 3, let's say we had 3 of them, we would put in 3 here. Then we look at eyes were wild type, body was wild type, but the wings were mutant. There were 3 of those. So eyes were wild type, body was wild type, wings were mutant, short. We said 3 of those. Then we have mutant eyes, mutant body, wild type wings. 1 of those, so that's the reciprocal here. Then we have wild type eyes with mutant body, mutant wings. We had 0 of those. So we'll put in wild type eyes, mutant body, mutant wings, 0 of those. Mutant eyes, wild type body, wild type wings, 0. And then the last class where we had wild type eyes, mutant body, and wild type wings. So wild type, mutant, wild type. There were 2 of those. Wild type, mutant, wild type. And mutant eyes, wild type body, mutant wings. Mutant, wild type, mutant. 0 of those. And you can see it is tallying these on the bottom here. So as the groups put in their data, it will add these up. We can then do the same thing for the males. This is our male data up here. So wild type, wild type, wild type, we had 1. For mutant, 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 24. Wild type, mutant, 0. Mutant, mutant, wild type, 3. Wild type, mutant, mutant, 3. So see wild type, mutant, mutant. Mutant, wild type, 0. So mutant, wild type, And then the last class, wild type, mutant, wild type, 2. And mutant, wild type, mutant, 10. So you can see here that it tallied the total of our different classes for the females down at the bottom here. It will tallying the total for the different classes for the males, the bottom here. We have the total of both sexes, so the total number of wild type for all 3, independent of male and female here. The total of mutant for all 3, independent of male and female right here. The total number of wild type eyes, wild type body, short wings, independent male and female right here, and so on. So we have to put in our group name right here, group 2, because we've reserved group 2. So if you only did this cross for your P cross, so that gave you your F1 results, then you don't have to put in any data here. If you did only this cross, strain 1 male with wild type female, then you would not put data in here, and you would put the data in here instead for females and for males. And if you did both of them, you would put the data in both places. So, for example, just like we showed before, let's say we did both of them, we'll just put the same data in here. Obviously, the data would be different, but just to show you how it's going to add things up. So you can see it's adding the total number of each class for the females for this reciprocal cross here in row 46. It's adding the total number for each class for males for this reciprocal cross in row 60. And it is adding the total number of each class for this reciprocal cross for males and females independent of sex. You'll notice there's no grand total here. There's no need to use a grand total for the F1 for the F1 or for the F2 for the trihybrid cross. You can use just the strain, just either of the reciprocal crosses. And the reason is that if these genes happen to be sex-linked, then you can't combine the data for both the reciprocal crosses. Hint. So that's how you would put the data in for the trihybrid cross. So it's the same way that you do it for the dihybrid cross. It's just that there's more phenotypic classes. Now, how would you do this for the F2? It would be the exact same way. They look exactly the same. I actually didn't generate any data for the F2 because putting in the data for the F2 is exactly the same as the F1. So let's say for the F2, I'll just make some quick data right here. We'll say that these are our F2 results, and the difference between your F2 and your F1 is basically you're going to have more. So let's say we had 30 and 10 and 12. I'm just making up numbers here. Your numbers are going to be quite, I'm sure, quite a bit lower because you didn't have to do this many counts. 25 and 11 and 12 and 23. Well, how would you put this data in? Well, you would go to the F2 tab. You would go to the dihybrid cross tab at the bottom, your frequent flyers group, and you're going to look at which cross did we do here. Now remember, for the F2, you only had to set up one of the reciprocal crosses. So in the F1 results, so when we were talking about the F1 results here, you may have data in both of the reciprocal crosses. So you may have data here, and you may have data here. And with the trihybrid cross, you may have data here, and you may have data here. But for the F2 results, remember, you only had to set up one of the F1 self-crosses. So you should only have data either here or here. And you could see group 3 only has data here, which is correct. You should only have data in one of these. So let's say we wanted to put this data in. We have 30, 10, 12, and 31. And we already know if we set it up this way, we know where they should go. So 30 wild type, wild type. So we would put in 30 for wild type, 10 for mutant wild type. So mutant wild type, 10. So again, make sure you're putting the numbers in the right spot. 12 wild type mutant. 12 wild type mutant. And remember, this is wild type female crossed with strain 2 male. So wild type female crossed with strain 2 male. If you did the reciprocal, you would simply just put it down here. And the last one, mutant body, mutant wings, 31. You can see it's adding all of these values at the bottom here. And then we would do the same thing for, these are the males. So make sure you're putting in the right spot. These are females here, so these are the males, so I'm simply going to cut these and put these where the males are. So make sure that you're putting the data in the right spot. Females, 25, wild type for both, 25. 11 mutant body wild type wings, so mutant body wild type wings, 11. 12 wild type body mutant wings, wild type body mutant wings. And 23 mutant body mutant wings. And just like you did before, it's going to tally all of these. It's going to give you the total for this reciprocal cross for each gender, independent of gender. It's going to give you the total for this reciprocal cross, each gender, independent gender, and it's going to give you the grand total for both crosses. Remember, only the dihybrid cross gives you a grand total. The trihybrid cross does not. And if you wanted to put in trihybrid data, I'm not going to actually make new data for this, but it would work exactly the same as you did before. So let's say, like I said, most groups will have set up this cross here, strain 1 female with wild type male, and you can go ahead and put in your data. We can use the same data from the F1. Let's imagine this is our F2. So let's say we had 22 and 3. We'd put in, obviously the data would be different than our F1, but 22 and 3 for wild type, wild type, wild type, wild type yellow short, wild type mutant, wild type mutant. So if we had 3 of those and then 1 mutant wild type, be 3 and 1. wild type, mutant, 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 wild type, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then the last class would be mutant, wild type, mutant, wild type, mutant, wild type, mutant. So 2 and 0, 2 and 0. So this is, and remember, if you set up your data like this ahead of time, it becomes a lot easier to put it into Excel. So I would highly recommend you do this. And it's going to add up the numbers down here for each class for females, for each class for males, total for males and females. And like I said, you may not need to use all these totals. So you may only need to use this row right here, depending upon what you think your cross is. So how do you do the analysis for these? Well, what we talked about in lab 2 weeks ago in terms of the dihybrid and trihybrid cross analysis, you're going to want to go back and look at that because that was extremely relevant to what you're going to be doing here, as well as look at the sample lab report I posted on eClass, because that is a good example of how to do an analysis for a dihybrid and a trihybrid cross. We'll try to talk about it in lab this week if there's time. Of course, you can always contact me. I'm happy to sit down with your group and talk about how to go about doing the analysis.